Good evening, everybody. My name is Steve Steckschulte, and I've been the state director in Ohio for the Convention of States project, since March of 2014, I believe. It's been a little over 2.5 years, so it's been a little while, and I'll talk about the growth of our organization. And what I was hoping to do tonight is to talk about the Convention of States, talk about what Article 5 is all about. What's the concept? How does it work? How do we think it will actually make it possible to rein in the federal government, which seems these days almost impossible? And then talk about how you can help and how you can get involved with the Convention of States and what we're doing here in Ohio, as well as across the country. And then, of course, I'm happy to stay and answer any questions you have for as long as you'll have me. And so with that, the Convention of States project is a project of the Citizens for Self-Governance, and you can go to selfgovern.com. We actually have also our own page called conventionofstates.com, but the Citizens for Self-Governance is our parent organization. So if you want to hear about, okay, how did we, where's our financing, all that, it's all done through the Citizens for Self-Governance. So we're really open about that. And one of the things I love about being part of the Convention of States project is I'm not going to ask you for any money. We don't ask you for money. That's our national office does that process. But I will ask you if you'd be willing to give us your most precious resource, and that is part of your finite time here on earth. So that is going to be an ask, I will tell you up front. Calling a Convention of States, the idea is that under Article 5, there are two methodologies which I'll talk about. But the reason why this second methodology for amending the Constitution, and that's key, amending, not rewriting, amending the Constitution, was done because the founders knew that the federal government might one day become basically drunk with their own power. And I think I'd be hard pressed to go anywhere in the state and have someone tell me that the federal government is under control. I mean, we could probably sit here for the next 2 hours and give examples of how the federal government has, as Martin said very well, overstepped its bounds, gone over what its original intent was. And if you recall, if you've read up on this, like 2 days before the end of the Constitutional Convention that they had in 1787, George Mason said, wait a minute, Article 5 only gives the Congress the ability to propose amendments. Then they go to the states for ratification. We need to have another way, because if Congress is out of control and they're happy with being out of control, sounds like today, there's no way that the people can change anything if it's being abused. So this most important check is Article 5. And of course, as you know, Article 5 has produced 27 successful amendments to the Constitution. There have been about 38 or 40 that have been sent to the states, but only 27 got ratified. And I think the number is how many have been proposed in Congress and didn't get through Congress. There's about 300 to 400 through our history. So it is a narrow filter, in essence, to go through. But Article 5 in the second methodology gives the states the power to call a convention, and this is key, for the purpose of proposing amendments to the Constitution. Proposing amendments to the Constitution. Not rewriting it, not throwing it out with the baby with the bathwater and starting over again. No, it's only to propose amendments to the Constitution. Next. So these two methods, the first one in the next slide here, is that Congress, by 2/3 votes of both the House and the Senate, can propose an amendment. Then it goes to the states either through the state legislatures or through a convention for ratification. And if 3/4 of the states ratify it, it becomes part of the Constitution. This is the methodology that all 27 of the amendments to our Constitution have followed. They were proposed by Congress and then ratified in one of the two methods. I think all of them have been ratified by the legislatures. I think there's only one, if my history is correct, and if somebody knows what the correct number is, let me know. One was done by a convention for the ratification only. Now, Take a good look at that, and then let's go to the next one. Now, it's like the old song, what changed? What's different here? Where's Waldo, right? The difference is the beginning of the process in this second process for amending the Constitution. Instead of Congress proposing the amendments, the states, through a convention of states that has to be called by 2/3 of the state legislatures, can propose an amendment, and it goes through the exact same choice of processes for ratification. So what does this mean? This means that nothing gets amended unless the states, 3/4 of them, in this case 38, now that we have 50, 38 have to say yes. It doesn't become part of the Constitution until that process is completely through. So, the process for method number 2, and I apologize for the size of this font here, 34 states submit applications for the same issues. Now, does anybody know how many applications or resolutions to call for a convention of states have happened in our history? Anybody want to guess how many times individual states have asked for it? Individual states. 20, 30? About 300 or 400 times there have been applications. So you say to yourself, if we only need 34 states, which is 2/3 of 50, and we used to have less than 50, why have we never had a convention of the states? Because 34 states have not submitted applications that ask for the exact same thing. That's the key. That's called aggregation. So we've had a lot of states, and this started almost right away. Virginia asked for a convention of states almost right away. And this has not ever happened because we've never gotten 34 states to say, we all want the same thing. Now, once 34 states do ask for the same thing, Congress is required, I think it's in one of the Federalist Papers, I can't remember which one it was, Hamilton says, shall does not mean should, or we hope they do, it means must. It means must. They must call for the convention. And if we get to 34 with our COS resolution, and they don't call it right away, we've got litigation primed up and ready to go, because we want them to call it right away. Now, point number 3, commissioners or delegates debate, propose, and vote upon possible amendments. And I underline that because, again, it's not an amendment till what? It gets ratified by the states. That's very important to remember. And I'll talk about why that is in a minute. Commissioners are named by the state legislature. They work on behalf of the state. Like your insurance agent. My dad was an insurance agent for quite a few years. That insurance agent works as on your behalf. Now, if they don't work on your behalf, you can fire them. Same thing works here. The commissioners work on behalf of the state, so they're named by the state legislature. But what's interesting about that is, point B, commissioners act in agency for the state. And I put up Indiana because Indiana passed a law signed by Governor Pence that says if one of their commissioners goes to one of these conventions and does something we don't like or tries to make the convention a runaway, we can charge them with a felony. So the states have the ability, if they want to say, you must listen to us and you can only vote this way. So the states have a lot of power. The state legislature has power over what that commissioner or commissioners will do in a convention. So it's not, hey, Martin, let me send you out and be a commissioner. Go do whichever you want, and I'm going to do this and hope you do it right. No, I have the ability to pull you back. You act on agency for the state. And I'd love it if you became a commissioner. That'd be great. But the point is that they act upon the state's behalf, at the state's instructions. And because here's another quiz for you. How many conventions of multiple states have there ever been? There's been 0 under Article 5, but there have been ones for like water rights and to discuss border issues, things like that. Multiple states have gotten together. There's been about 36 of them. About 24 before the Constitution was written, and about a dozen afterwards. And in every case, and whenever you have a multi-sovereign, The states are sovereign. We have a multi-sovereign convention or multi-sovereign meeting. The rule has always been one vote per delegation. So if Ohio has 7 commissioners, we get 1 vote. California gets 1 vote. Delaware gets 1 vote. So it is truly 1 vote per state, which is the sovereign entity under a convention of the states. It's important to know all these points, because when we talk about some of the things that people say could happen, if we refer back to that, we really find out where it can happen. Now, step 4, the proposed amendments from the convention are sent to the states for ratification. The convention's over. They've done some of these things. There's not one amendment yet. Not until it gets ratified, if and only if 38 states ratify it. Why am I saying this so much? Because people will, we've had a lot of people who don't like the idea of a convention of states, and they'll use the statement, it'll run away. But I've just laid out a few things here. It'll run away if you can get 38 states to agree with you. That's very hard to do. The chances of something way on this side of the political spectrum or way on that side of the political spectrum, it's not going to happen. So our organization, the Convention of States Project under a Citizens for Self-Governance, our goal is to do 2 things. Number 1, get a petition in 2/3 of the states, and that petition is a call for a Convention of States to propose amendments that will, and this is part of every state's resolution from our organization, any amendment that will limit the power and jurisdiction of the federal government, that will be germane. This is the agenda that all these states are going to agree to. If we get 34 states to pass the resolution, they're all going to say exactly the same thing. So these are going to be the topics, and only the topics, that we're allowed to have. The other one, impose fiscal restraints. Balanced budget amendment is great, and we believe in it. We think it's a wonderful thing. But I can tell you, as a CPA myself, there's 3 ways you can balance your books, right? More revenue, cut your expenses, or a little bit of both. Now, who wants to guess what the federal government will do if you just say, balance your books, federal government, and you don't tell them anything else? What will they do? Exactly, thank you. Raise the taxes, increase the revenue. Fiscal restraints could include a cap on how much they can tax us, a cap on how much they can spend. Sort of like our own budgets at home, right? We have a cap. Whatever we make from our business, from our employers, that's our cap on revenue. Our cap on expenditures, if we want to balance our books, is going to be equal to or less than our expenses. That's why fiscal restraints are key. The third one, term limits. This is a popular thing. Imposing term limits for federal officials and office holders. What does this mean? Supreme Court? That's possible. Bureaucracies? That's possible. Congress and Senate, House of Representatives and Senate. Term limits. Now, that's not the most popular thing with legislators. And I would ask this question, and I bet you, I'll bet, I don't know, I guess anything, that Congress will never push for term limits as an amendment to the Constitution. It'll never happen. If it doesn't happen under a convention of states, it will never happen. So if you want term limits, there is only one way. There is only one way. And I really believe that I can almost say that's with dead certainty. So the point is, our resolution, and I'll talk about how we're doing in different states, says these 3 topics and these 3 topics only. Now, let's think about this. What's not in that list? Second Amendment. I don't think Second Amendment has anything to do with those 3 things. First Amendment, can't change that. Wouldn't change that. Anything in the Bill of Rights, quite honestly, probably will not be germane. Now, the beauty of this is, and we'll talk about the simulated convention that our organization sponsored, the simulated convention. They had a couple of situations where people were going to bring up points that were outside this area. And in Robert's rules, all they had to do is somebody had to say, point of order, this is not germane to the agenda of our convention. And it probably would have been thrown out. It never got to the floor. So again, if you think it's going to be runaway, if you hear somebody it's going to be runaway, we'll go through the facts and have them watch the simulation because it's online. You can watch it. The second goal, first one was to get that resolution, but the second goal kind of dovetails into the first goal, is to build a strong network of grassroots support. Volunteers, a volunteer force in the States, all volunteer force. I was joking with folks over here. I get paid the same as Mike and Sue over here, which we'll introduce later. They're part of our organization. They get paid exactly the same as I do. Zero. We're all volunteers. And we want to be volunteers because that's how things really need to get done in this country, through the grassroots. And build a political operation in a minimum of 40 states. We've got it in 50 now. Our leaders of our organization, the first one is Mark Meckler, who you may know, he was one of the co-founders of the Tea Party Patriots. He left the Tea Party Patriots to found the Citizens for Self-Governance. He is the president of the Citizens for Self-Governance. And in spending time with him, he's come to Ohio a couple times, down to Columbus State House. Wonderful guy, great grassroots organizer, wonderful motivator. So we got that part of it. And then you talk about the intellectual part of it, not that Mark isn't intellectual, but the intellectual part, Michael Farris, founder of the Homeschool Legal Defense Association. This is a man who has experience. Homeschooling wouldn't exist without Michael Farris and the Homeschool Legal Defense Association, because they went state by state and got it passed to allow for homeschooling. So that really, him and his organization were responsible for that. So he knows how to get grassroots organization. So let's talk a little bit about this whole process of, someone comes up to you and says, well, wait a minute, this COS resolution, this whole convention of states, they're gonna ruin the Second Amendment. I saw an NRA hat, great, I'm a member too. Let's do that. Let's talk about how they could get the Second Amendment. First of all, it has to comply with the aggregated COS resolutions. Now, we just talked about that. It has to be under those three subjects. Is the Second Amendment part of fiscal restraints? Is it part of a limit? It's a limit on our ability to have, the right to bear arms. It's a limit on us. We want a limit on the federal government. And our resolution says term limits. So it's not germane, that's first. But let's imagine a crazy world where somebody said, yeah, it's germane, let's do it. So it's got to pass the convention. Now the convention will have rules for passage. So if we keep going here, it'll be 50% plus one, which means 25 delegations could block it. If it's 2/3 to pass the convention, then you only need 17 out of 50 to block it. And if it's 3/4, you'll have 13 delegations that can block it. And remember, we have instructions from the state legislature. You could have states that would say, don't you dare vote on anything to change the Second Amendment. And that dovetails into this last part. For it to get through, and this is a little tough to read, I apologize, only 13 states, remember what I said, it has to be ratified by 3/4 of the states. That's 38. So that means if 13 say no, only 37 say yes. So even if it gets through the Convention of States, which it wouldn't because it's not germane, but let's say it would, and it passes, which I don't think it would, you only need 13 states, either the state and as a whole, or one chamber. If the House says no and the Senate says yes, that's a no for that state. Or these resolutions to ratify go through committees. If a committee stops it, it dies in that committee, that chamber says no, one chamber no, one chamber yes, that's a no. So only 13 states. Now, let's do a little exercise here. Go next one here. Only 13 states can go through there. So let's think about, can we name 13 states that would stop a change to the Second Amendment? I bet we could. We'd go through right the middle of the country, go up Louisiana, Nebraska, Montana, North Dakota, South Dakota, all those states. Iowa probably would say no. I bet Ohio would say no to that. I bet Michigan would say no to that. I bet Tennessee, Kentucky, Georgia, maybe Florida even would say that, no to that too. I bet South Carolina and North Carolina. What am I at? I bet I'm over 13 now. Why am I saying this? Because when people come and say, things will run away, this process right here is very difficult. So again, things that are way over here or way over here on the political spectrum probably will not get through, because you got to get it through 38 out of 50 states. Now, with that said, I want to stay here for a second. Let's think about the other side of that. a convention is called. Who do you think is going to like that in Washington? Think the Democrats will be happy with that? No. Think the Republicans will be happy with that? No. Think the media will say, oh, that's a great idea? No. And why won't they like it? Because you're threatening their power base. You know, I think, what is it, the top 5 out of the top 10 counties, richest counties in the country, are surround Washington, D.C. Coincidence? I think not. There's money in them there hills. There's not hills. There's money in that swamp. There's a lot of money in that swamp. So what we're trying to do will threaten them. And a political earthquake, quite frankly, this year's election will look like a piker compared to the political earthquake we'll have when we get to 34. So we're ready for it. But the point is, this is the people. This is the ability through grassroots, the people, to say enough. And the beauty of this whole process is it's legal, it's civil, it doesn't involve shooting or anybody getting hurt, except for the people who lose money, if you want to call that being hurt. And it's constitutional. It's right there in Article 5. And it won't run away. And if you want to, we'll talk about this later, but on our website, conventionofstates.com, there is a page that says, go to the simulation page. You can watch. We did a simulation where there was every state sent commissioners, every state, for this simulated convention. And the majority of them took it very, very, very seriously. And they wanted to pass amendments, and they passed out 6 amendments, and you can go on our webpage and read about them. Again, that's convention, it's on my card, conventionofstates.com, and I'll show you a screenshot in a second what it looks like. So read for yourself. But this is why I wanted to talk about what Article 5 is all about and what is the truth versus what's the FUD. Now, FUD is an acronym, F-U-D, fear, uncertainty, and doubt. No facts, fear, uncertainty, and doubt. These are the facts. And this particular slide, we gave it, and we presented this to legislators in Ohio, and they were like, that's pretty tough to get things through. Then do you think it's going to be a runaway? Doubtful. So our momentum is building, and again, a little bit of small font here, but the applications have passed in 8 states already. Georgia, Florida, Alaska, Alabama, Tennessee, Indiana, Oklahoma, and Louisiana. And we've got virtually no press up through a couple of weeks ago. And we've passed it in 8 states already. It's already in 23 additional states. It's been, 13 additional states, additional to the 8, have passed it in one chamber but didn't get through the other chamber. And then, of course, we have, in Ohio, there's 36, a total of 44 states where we have legislation for this same resolution, including Ohio. In Ohio, it's called HJR, House Joint Resolution number 3. And it's right now in the GAO Committee of the House, the Government Accountability and Oversight Committee in the House. And what we're doing through our grassroots effort is the minute they get back into session, in their lame duck session, which starts right after the election in November, is to get them to vote it out of committee and then vote it in the House and then vote it out in the Senate. That will be finished in Ohio with the resolution part. And so as far as again, I mentioned to some folks here, we had 390 people in March of 2014. Just today I checked, we had 26,002 people who have come to our website. We've never bought a list. Just in Ohio, 26,000 people who've gone, signed a petition or said, I want to help, or said, I want to just show my support. So this has been completely grassroots. You guys remember the commercial? What was it? The hair commercial. You tell 2 friends, and you tell 2 friends, and then the screen big. That's how we do it. That's the way it's got to get done. This is not some big corporation behind us. We are tax exempt, and I have the tax exempt thing, and it was, you want to guess who signed our tax exempt authorization? Anybody? Lois Lerner. She signed it. So we got it in there before she started messing with all the groups, but it's just funny. I just thought that was funny. I saw her name on there. I was like, all right, cool. And we've had petitions signed in every district here in Ohio and every state legislature district in the United States in every state. We accomplished that earlier this year. Every single legislative district, state legislative district in every single state in this union. So we are not messing around. We're building an organization. We've got 1.2 million strong in the United States, 26,000 here in Ohio. And our organization is pretty flat. This is an old slide. We've had a couple more positions, but state director, I have grassroots coordinators and regional directors at the national office. A couple of those folks are paid, but we aren't. And then over here we have Sue Kaler. Sue, you want to say, just wave? That's our legislative liaison. Sue's the point person for the legislature, working with them, getting all the information. Sue, what kind of experience as a lobbyist or a legislative liaison did you have a couple years ago? How much experience? A couple years ago? None. Grassroots. So again, folks, this is just illustrating the point. This is truly a grassroots effort. I'm a husband, father, and a son, and I've got a job, and this is what I do for fun. No, it's not for fun. It's important. But the point is you're true citizens here. Mike Mowry sitting next to Sue over there. Raise your hand. Mike's position was new. He's the recruiter of recruiting district captains. We have a point person in every district. That's the goal. We have point people in 82 out of the 99 districts right now. We're looking to get to 99. And they work with the volunteers at as you can see, the grassroots. So this is kind of a flat organization. We have a couple other statewide positions. We've got a person who works in the IT stuff with our national office. We also have some media people, not media professionals, but they work with the media to get our word out. And again, they're all citizens. We've got district captains that are high school students all the way up to retirees. I think the late 70s to the teens. We have business owners, we have regular workers, we have unemployed people, we have mothers, we have fathers, we have everything you can think of. What we have is Ohio. It's really the cross-section of Ohio. So a district captain, as I mentioned, we have 82 out of 99, and Mike's working towards getting all 99 covered. Their job is to educate and recruit over 100 volunteers in their districts to make noise and try to convince their representative, and they along with two other representative districts, their senator from Ohio, their state representative and their state senator, to vote yes in committee and yes as a whole on HJR 3. So we're trying to use pressure, but it's positive pressure. It's not, you better be doing this or we're going to, no, we don't go in there and pound the desk. We say, let's go give you facts on why this is important. Now, how can you help? What can you do? Learn about us on conventionofstates.com. Again, it's on my card. I've got more cards if you want to look at it. There is a ton of information on that website. Talk to your state representatives, to your state legislators about HJR 3. Tell them why you're for it, why you think this is the key, why you think it doesn't matter who's going to be president come January of next year. This has got to happen. Because I don't know about you, but I really don't think that Donald Trump or Hillary Clinton is going to rein in the federal government. I don't know, but my guess is, our best bet is Convention of States. There's a picture of our website. Now you'll notice on this website, you see a red box that says sign the petition. That means you sign the petition, it'll be sent to your representative based upon your address. We never sell our information, never have and never will. We ask for your name and your address, maybe your phone number. And if you want to volunteer, you can volunteer. We may ask you to do some things. I send out periodically statewide emails saying, hey, everybody call this legislator, or everybody, send emails here or that kind of thing. But the second one, the white box says, visit the simulation page. Back, what was it, September 22nd, 23rd, I think was the dates. We had a simulation brought in, as I mentioned, representatives from every state in the union had commissioners. Ohio, we had 3 of them. We had a Democrat from Cleveland, we had a Republican from Alliance, and we had a Republican from the Cincinnati area. And they were our 3 commissioners who went, and Margie Condit, who's in 52, I believe it is, she helped author one of the amendments that went through on federal regulation. And Representative Patman, who's a Democrat from Cleveland, he was talking about, he made a quite a good speech on the fact that they were trying to do a line item veto, and he said, wait a minute, that gives more power to the president. The point was our Ohio commissioners did get involved, they did have a voice, They were very involved in this process. And we are truly bipartisan here in Ohio. We've got a Democrat as our sponsor for HJR3, and we have a Republican. So we are truly bipartisan here. So you can go to our website. There's hours of videos and documents on there that you can read. I would suggest you go to that site and ask us questions. If I can't answer your question or one of us can't answer your questions, we'll send it up to the national office and get an answer for you. There's information on, the solution, the problem, the strategy, why it will succeed. That bottom one says frequently, these are just screenshots from our webpage. Frequently asked questions, where we give you what people typically ask and what our answers are. And the next one, there's a little area there called Citizens Toolkit. If you drill into that, and this is at the bottom of the front page, you get what's called print material. And you can print off material to read later. That's been written by Michael Ferris, Rob Natelson, who's probably the foremost national expert on Article 5. They provided articles. Mark Levin, Robbie George, they're all on our legal board of reference. They believe in what we're doing here. And you can look at that information as well. So there's tons of things to read here. I think we got one more slide here. So what's my word tonight? Spread the word, encourage your friends to join our movement today. Again, this is not about personalities. This is not about somebody's going to save us. Well, that's not going to happen because we've had a savior, but that's another story. The point is, the people who are going to do this and are going to make this happen are the American people.